Bill Thompson, member of IPA. I saw you speaking with Andrew, and I thought I'd come down and wish you a Merry Christmas, and thank you for the inspiration of the IPA that I've had for many years now.
Thank you, Bill, for all of your support. As I was just saying to Andrew, we're fighting for freedom, we're fighting for the Australian way of life, we're fighting for Western civilisation, and you and our 4,500 IPA members have been a big part of our success during 2017. Thank you, Bill.
Well, it's Mutual Admiration Society tonight, mate. There was commentary about going to public meetings where people acknowledge the traditional owners and the elders and all that. When I go to these meetings, and that is the commencement of the meeting, if there's question time and I get a chance to stand up and ask a question, I always acknowledge the people who have organised the event for the evening, and then I say I'd like to also thank the workers at the coal-fired power stations for keeping the lights on for us here this evening.
How does that go down, Bill?
Usually I don't get any cat calls, but I'm sure I'm sure I'm not the flavour of the month with these folks. Mate, the Wheeler Centre I regard as one of the apart from the IPA, one of the treasures of Melbourne.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
I go along expecting not to agree with the panel and the speakers that they have on, but I like to hear what people have to say, and I like to have an opportunity
You're
to
a
ask.
pluralist.
Indeed I am, and I like to hear what they have to say and ask questions. And I went along. They had an event in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago at the Exhibition Centre for Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Now, there were a couple of representatives out from the US to accept the Sydney Peace Prize, I believe.
That should be abolished.
And there were the two Black Lives Matter people and an Australian bloke who was doing the MCs. And when question time came, they said, we've got time for questions now, and I was sitting near the front of the audience. There was about 500 people there. I put my hand up, and the fellow moderating said, look, we're going to be giving preference to people of colour tonight. And it's the first time in many years that I thought, I'm really not happy with what's...
So we're now judging people by their colour,
Absolutely.
by their religion. Why didn't he ask men and women to sit on two different sides
Absolutely.
of the room? Why didn't he say, let's fill out a form and decide what race or ethnicity you are, and then I'll decide whether you're allowed in the room? Where have we seen that before?
It's funny you should mention that. I lived in Brisbane for a couple of years in 07, 08, and I went along to a conference, Islam in Australia. There was a bloke, Sheikh Yusuf Estes, who was visiting Australia, and I went along, and sure enough, the audience was segregated. The women were on one side. It was like an Aussie barbecue.
It's terribly disappointed. Well, normally is it the men or the women in the kitchen? But that's terribly disappointing, and that's not Australia. That's what the right of women to drive a car, to go to school, to live their life, is what Western civilisation has given us.
Absolutely.
And that's what we have to fight for and defend.
Mate, I have ultimate admiration for what you guys do at the IPA, and it's a pleasure to actually chat with you and to pay my annual subscription. I did ring up John Fain once a few years ago. He's banging...
Once? You used to ring up once a week.
I did. He bangs on about who are these secret donors of the IPA.
4,500 members.
and
those are our secret donors. I don't think you're that secret.
I rang up and said, John, the mystery is solved. I'm one of the donors.
Bill, yeah. I'm Bill from Southbank.
Good on you, mate. Nice talking with you.
Thank you, Bill.
Merry Christmas.